10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello, my friends. And thank you so much for coming to spend part of your Tuesday, January 16th, with me. It is quite a day. We've been waiting for this day for a very long time, those of us who live here on Long Island and those of us who are following this story worldwide. And what is it that I always say? If you want something to happen, go on vacation. So I was at an undisclosed location this weekend in the sun somewhere in Cancun. And I knew this was going to happen since last week. And so I was kind of bummed that I wasn't going to be able to go to court for this today for the REX HEUERMANN most recent indictment. But best laid plans, right? That's what they say. But I had a great time and I'm back. So for those of you on Twitter who thought I was afraid of covering the Karen Read case, you were wrong. There is some woman who apparently with her 50 something followers seems to think that it's worth her time to make a 3-part post about me for covering the Karen Read case. Did anybody see that? I know you got a bunch of you guys tagged me in it. And I was just like, what? Please don't text me on the phone. Yeah, so that was pretty funny. And yeah, it was a great time. I was with my friend Bob Weir and some other members of the Grateful Dead while they played a couple concerts on the beach. So it was a much needed, really cool break and vacation. Where was I? I was following the Grateful Dead around. They've been following me around actually for my whole entire life. And so they keep doing it. I just show up somewhere and there they are. There they are. But yeah, I'm not afraid of covering the Karen Read case. In fact, I'm going to be on LTL True Crime with Brian on Friday night. So he asked me to come on his show, and I'm going to go on his show. And I will be covering the Karen Read hearing on Thursday evening. I will recap that for you with my legal commentary and my legal thoughts on whatever happens in court on Thursday in Karen Read. And I think it might be kind of explosive. But here we are today on the REX HEUERMANN Long Island serial killer case. And for those of you who have been following me from the get-go, this has been one of the cases that I've been following since I started this channel about at the end of June of this year, 2023. Before that, I was a guest host very often on some other true crime channels, Duduron, and also Police Off the Cuff. And so you may have seen me on one of my 60 or 70 appearances that I did on those shows before I started my own channel and posted my own content. Oh, Maureen, thank you so much for your super sticker already, getting right in there. And Shauna Banana, thank you for becoming a member. So those of you who know, I am a Long Island attorney. I've been a licensed New York State attorney for over 30 years in state and federal courts. I'm a trial lawyer. And I live on Long Island, and I have been born and raised, except for the years that I went to college and law school in Boulder, Colorado. It's the only time I really spent any time living away from Long Island. And since 1996, we have known on Long Island that there has been a serial killer roaming the island. And in 1996 was when a pair of legs washed up on Fire Island, which is our ocean beaches on the south shore of Long Island. It's an island off the south shore. And a pair of legs washed up in a trash bag. And it took until 2023 for those legs to be identified. And it was Jane Doe number 7 who was eventually identified as Karen Vergata. I did a stream on that. I did a whole, I think I have 25 videos already on the Gilgo Beach LISK case since he was arrested. And we've also gone into some cold cases from the 80s that we think may be related. And this is a very, very, very deep, tangled web that we have already started to weave on this channel. But so when those legs washed up in Fire Island in 1996, I had 2 young children, and these were the kids that I would take my beaches to. These were the kids. These were the beaches that I would take my kids to. And it was scary because, you know, legs washing up on Long Island, not a great thing. And then in 2010, while police were searching for Shannon Gilbert, who is a whole different story on a different show that we'll have to get into someday. But most of you that are here know who Shannon Gilbert is and know what her case is about. And John Ray, her attorney, who's been fighting tirelessly for her family for free since 2010. The way he's been so passionate about trying to find the truth about what happened to Shannon Gilbert. But there was a police officer who was out training a canine and decided to go out on Ocean Parkway to maybe try and see if he could find anything having to do with Shannon. And this was in December of 2010. And at that time, his canine found a body, but it was not Shannon Gilbert. And eventually, within 3 days, they would find 3 more bodies. And we have known them, or they have been called, the Gilgo 4. Let me pull up a picture for you. In July of this year, Rex Heuermann was arrested and indicted for the deaths of 3 of the Gilgo 4. He was, let me just pull this up for you. One second. In July, Rex Heuermann was arrested and he was charged with the deaths of Melissa Barthelemy, Amberlynn Costello, and Megan Waterman. Today, after a very long grand jury proceeding, he was finally indicted with the death of Maureen Brainard-Barnes, who was the first of the Gilgo 4 to go missing. She went missing in July of 2007. Melissa Barthelemy, who was 24 years old, was reported missing from the Bronx, July 12th of 2009. Amberlynn Costello, 27, was last seen in North Babylon, which is here on Long Island, in September of 2010. And Megan Waterman, 22 years old, was last seen in a Hop Hog Holiday Inn here on Long Island in 2010, just a month after Shannon Gilbert disappeared. So after the bodies were found, and we'll get into this a little bit more later, but it's been a very, very long 13 years until somebody was finally arrested for the deaths of these poor women. And we've been waiting a very, very, very long time. So today was the day that Rex was finally indicted for the death of Maureen Brainard-Barnes. Maureen was a 25-year-old woman. She lived in Norwich, Connecticut. She was 4'11", which seems to be a common thread among a lot of the LISK victims, petite, small. She was a mother of 2. She would commute from Norwich to Manhattan, where she was an escort. She advertised on Craigslist and Backpage and some other websites for her services. And it's believed that she took an Amtrak from New London, Connecticut to Grand Central Terminal on July 6th of 2007. She was last heard from on July 9th of 2007 when she made a phone call to a friend, telling her friend that she was going on an out call that day. Normally, she would see her clients in some hotels or seedy hotels around the Times Square area. But this particular night, she told her friend that she was going on an out call. And today, he's finally been arrested. Something else, through my lens, I don't know if you're still here. I saw you in the pre-chat earlier. And for those of you who've been watching me for a long time, we did a show. I have the date. When did we do that show? We did a show, and I asked if anybody wanted to call in to talk about the case. And random people called in. And Through My Lens called in, and she came on the camera, and this was totally unplanned, totally unrehearsed. And she started telling us a story about how she was a blackjack dealer at Mohegan Sun in Connecticut back in, I think, 2002, 2003. And she was a blackjack dealer at a high stakes blackjack table. And she said She dealt blackjack to Rex Heuermann for 8 hours, and she will never forget it. I'm going to link that stream below. In fact, I might show a little clip of that stream later on, because it made me think, because we were all saying, have you contacted police? Did you contact law enforcement? And she did call the tip line. I don't know if they ever reached out to her, because it turns out that Maureen Brainard-Barnes was also a dealer, but she was a dealer at Foxwoods Casino, which is also in Connecticut, and it's really not far from Mohegan Sun. So now that we're finding out a little bit more, and we're going to go through the bail application, this is the superseding indictment. Superseding indictment means that this is going to replace the original indictment that we went over, the bail application that we went over, I think, on July 14th. And I've linked that show below so that you can go back, where I did a deep dive into the original bail application and all of the evidence. I think it was something like 56 pages we went through. And that was basically the reason why the district attorney thought that Rex Heuermann should not be allowed out on bail. And it gave a lot of evidence. If you haven't seen it, go back and it'll give you a deep dive into the first bail application. And then we're going to take a look at a little clip of what Through My Lens told us on that show that I did a while ago. I can't remember when that was. But first, let's go to the bail application. Let's go straight to the documents, because I know a lot of you have been watching this all day, and you've probably seen all the press conferences and you've listened to everybody talk about it, but I don't know if anybody's done the bail application, and that's what we do here. We look at legal documents. So let's take a look at that first. And then what I also find very interesting is that all of a sudden, Gloria Allred is involved in this case. Has anybody seen that? Gloria Allred showed up at the press conference today. She's now representing some of the families of the victims. Which did anybody see that? Put it in the chat if you've seen it. Just put Gloria in the chat if you saw that part of the press conference today. A lot of stations cut it out. They didn't show it. And I found it super interesting that all of a sudden she was involved in this case, because I've never heard of Gloria Allred being involved in this case ever before. She's represented people like, Nicole Brown Simpson. She represented a lot of the Epstein victims. She represented a lot of the Weinstein victims. She calls herself the most famous woman lawyer in the country or the world or something on her own website. And coincidentally, she's got a Netflix documentary coming out at the beginning of February. So I'm not really sure what's going on here and why she's representing or when that happened, but I don't know if any of you noticed that she kind of pronounced some of the names wrong of the victims. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, but let's take a look and you can tell me what you think. Yeah, she does want a civil suit. That's right, Paula. So I think she showed up because she wants a civil suit. She's annoying. I think that Suffolk County better buckle up, because there's going to be a lawsuit coming against Suffolk County for bungling this investigation. Like I tried to say a long time ago, but a lot of people did not want to hear that from me. A lot of people did not want to hear me talk about the corruption in Suffolk County, New York. But it's a thing, and it happens, people. It happens. And here's a great example of how it happens. All right, let's take a look at this bail application, shall we? So this is the superseding indictment. This means that this is going to replace the other indictment. So it's basically adding to it. And then what they're doing here is they're attaching the original indictment as an exhibit to this one, so that everything is all kind of melted into one. And it's people of the city of New York versus Rex Heuermann. And this is the bail application for today's hearing, saying we're indicting him today for the death of Maureen Brainard-Barnes, and we do not think that you should let him out on bail. And here's why. And what's interesting about this bail application too is that they're going to also give us not just more information or more evidence that they have with regard to Maureen Brainard-Barnes, but they're going to give us some more information with regard to some of the other victims and the hairs that were found on those victims. So let's take a look. On or about July 14th, 2023, defendant Rex Heuermann was charged by a grand jury with the following 6 counts, which had been incorporated in Suffolk County Indictment number 71889-23. Murder in the first degree in violation of New York State Penal Law, Section 125.27, 1A11, a Class A1 violent felony for the death of Melissa Barthelemy, on or about July 10th of 2009. Murder in the first degree in violation of New York State Penal Law, Section 125.271A11, a Class A1 violent felony for the death of Megan Waterman on or about June 6th of 2010. Murder in the first degree in violation of New York State Penal Law, Section 125.271A11, a Class A1 violent felony for the death of Amber Costello on or about September 2nd of 2010. Murder in the second degree in violation of New York State Penal Law, Section 125.251, a Class A1 violent felony for the death of Melissa Barthelemy on or about July 10th of 2009. Murder in the second degree in violation of New York State Penal Law, Section 125.251, a Class A1 violent felony for the death of Megan Waterman on or about June 6th of 2010. And murder in the second degree in violation of New York State Penal Law, Section 125.25A1, a Class A1 violent felony for the death of Amber Costello on or about September 2 of 2010. Today, Rex Heuermann stands before this court charged by the grand jury in a superseding indictment, which incorporates not only the above counts, but the additional charge of murder in the second degree in violation of New York State Penal Law, Section 125.251, a Class A1 violent felony for the death of Maureen Brainard-Barnes on or about July 9th of 2007. I can't see the chat because I wasn't looking there, but I just want to tell you because I have a feeling that some people are going to want to know, why is he only charged with murder in the second degree for Maureen Brainard-Barnes, and he is charged with first degree for the other three of the Gilgo Four? And here's why. The New York State penal code that he was charged under for first degree murder is the defendant intentionally caused the death of two or more additional persons within the state in separate criminal transactions within a period of 24 months when committed in a similar fashion or pursuant to a common scheme or plan. So that is why first degree applies to the last three girls, because they would have been his second, third, and fourth kill, whereas Maureen Brainard-Barnes was the first to go missing. And for purposes of this indictment, I'm not going to say his first kill ever, but his first kill with regard to the Gilgo Four, that only rises to the second degree murder, which is intentional murder. But first degree murder is more like killing more than one person, two or more people. Does that make sense? I've been on vacation too long, and I am like, I can't even barely speak. Can't put my words together. But it was a good vacation. So there, I got that going for me. All right. That is why he's only charged with second degree for Maureen. The people filed a written bail application at Rex Heuermann's initial arrangement, which occurred on July 14th of 2023. That application is annexed here too as Exhibit A. On July 14th of 2023, Honorable Richard Ambrose ordered that defendant Rex Heuermann be remanded without bail. The matter was subsequently adjourned to August 1st, 2023, before the Honorable Timothy P. Mazie. I know it looks like it says Mazzie, but I've been in court and they pronounce it Mazie. I'm Italian too. I know. I would say Mazzie. It's Mazie. On August 1, 2023, and in the ensuing appearances that have followed, this court has continued to remand the defendant without bail. Set forth below is the people's bail application in support of the superseding indictment, which will expand on additional evidentiary developments in this investigation, not included within Exhibit A, further tying defendant Heuermann to the murders of Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, Amber Costello, and now Maureen Brainard-Barnes. Based on defendant Heuermann's indictment on an additional murder charge as it pertains to now a fourth victim, the serious nature of these serial murders, the planning and forethought that went into these crimes, the strength of the people's case, the length of incarceration the defendant faces upon conviction, the extended period of time that this defendant was able to avoid apprehension, and the remaining facts set forth herein and contained within Exhibit A, the people remain steadfast that the only means to ensure defendant Rex Heuermann's return to court is to remand him without bail. Records now establish that defendant Heuermann's wife was also out of New York for the disappearance of Maureen Brainard-Barnes. I know there's going to be pushback on this. We've discussed it before, but let's see what they have now. As set forth in Exhibit A, travel and cellular telephone billing records had previously established that defendant Heuermann's wife and children were out of the state during the disappearances and murders of 3 of the 4 victims, specifically Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. Recently, during the execution of numerous search warrants following defendant Heuermann's arrest, law enforcement secured thousands of documents from storage units leased by defendant Heuermann. While the review of these records is ongoing, among those records is an August 2007 Bank of America credit card statement. See embedded image on following page, which indicates a July 6, 2007 check-in to the flagship hotel located in Atlantic City, as well as transactions which are indicative of a stay in Atlantic City from July 6 of 2007 through July 20th of 2007. Just going to read footnote 1 to you. The highlighted boxes have been added to the bank statement below for demonstration purposes, red indicating a credit card charge for a stay at the flagship hotel beginning on July 6 of 2007, and blue indicating a credit card charge for a stay at the Club Wyndham Skyline Tower beginning on July 13th of 2007. When seized by law enforcement, the document below contained the handwriting depicted in the bank statement below. Okay, so what we're going to see written on this statement was written by Rex or someone, not the police. It says Atlantic City. Here are the charges. And I have I have questions, my friend. I have questions. Who keeps their credit card bills from 2007 to 2023 in their storage unit? Who does that? Who does? I mean, this is a treasure trove. Can you imagine how much stuff, how much inculpatory evidence they found in that storage unit? It's mind-boggling. So let me make this a little bigger for you because the print is a little bit small. But I mean, he's got Victoria's Secret. So here's a flagship hotel charge for arrival date of 7/6. Then down here, he's at the Tropicana Casino Resort and Hotel on the 23rd. But that's got an arrival date of 7/19. Boardwalk Hall, that's like a concert venue. Guess he bought some tickets for something. Oh, something expensive, $220 and $330. Where are my armchair detectives? Who wants to know, who wants to find out who is playing at the Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City in 2007 around July 23rd? Then there's a Skyline Tower hotel charge from July 13th of 2007. Go to the chat for a minute. I wonder if around that date there were other victims in Atlantic City. I don't think he was getting Victoria's Secret for his wife. That's what I was thinking. But remember, I did a show on those eastbound strangler cases, and those bodies were found outside behind the Golden Key Motel in Atlantic City, and they were found. I just looked it up on November 20th of 2006. Thank you, New Hampshire woman. I looked it up because once I saw these Atlantic City charges, my mind went right back. I did a show on that too, eastbound strangler, and why I thought they could be related. New Hampshire woman says, what date were the women in the canal behind the motel in Atlantic City? All of their heads were facing eastbound. We did a whole show on that. It's in the playlist for Long Island Serial Killer. It's about the eastbound strangler. So I found that really interesting. November of 2006, those 4 bodies were found. And then by July of 2007, he's in Atlantic City. Maureen Brainard-Barnes goes missing during that time. I have a lot of questions. This is a guy who clearly is a gambler and clearly spent a lot of time in Atlantic City. Yep. A whole bunch of charges for Atlantic City. Not banks. He didn't keep his bank statements. He just kept his credit card statements. Or are you saying, oh, that's right. Debbie says, remember, Melanie, they are hoarders. I mean, it's like, would you rent out a whole storage unit just to keep boxes and boxes and boxes of paper? I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I can't wait to hear what else was in there. I mean, Josh Groban was playing July 2007. Lady Prudence coming in. You Googled it. I mean, I know Boardwalk Hall because I've been to concerts there. That's crazy. There, or the bank statements might still be uncovered. Yes. Butterfly Dana, it is very interesting. Based on post-arrest interviews with witnesses, including defendant Heuermann's wife, Ms. Asa Ellerup, the task force was able to corroborate that Ms. Ellerup and her 2 children stayed in Atlantic City, New Jersey, from on or about July 6th, 2007, through on or about July 20th of 2007. The trip began with defendant Heuermann remaining in New York. So they're going on a little family vacation for 2 weeks to Atlantic City. I mean, what is there to do for kids in Atlantic City? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe they go to the beach. According to the investigation to date, Ms. Ellerup and her children checked into the flagship hotel on or about July 6th of 2007. On or about July 13th of 2007, defendant Heuermann arrived in Atlantic City. So they were there for about a week without him. On that date, defendant Heuermann and his family checked into the Club Wyndham Skyline Tower in Atlantic City, New Jersey, as seen above. Consequently, defendant Heuermann's wife and children were indeed traveling out of state during the time of Maureen Brainard-Barnes' disappearance, which occurred on or about July 9th of 2007. Based on the foregoing, the murders of all 4 victims occurred at times when defendant Heuermann's wife and children were traveling out of state, which allowed defendant Heuermann unfettered time to execute his plans for each victim without any fear that his family would uncover or learn of his involvement in these crimes. Additional burner phones and online account activity linked to defendant Heuermann. As described in Exhibit A, over the course of the investigation of defendant Heuermann, investigators located a number of online accounts and burner cell phones linked to defendant Heuermann, which were held by defendant in fictitious names and used for illicit activities. 2 of those phones were recovered from defendant Heuermann at the time of his arrest, specifically 347 number, which was recovered from defendant Heuermann's office in Midtown Manhattan, and another 347 number, which was recovered from defendant Heuermann's person. Both phones have clear ties to defendant Heuermann, also set forth within Exhibit A, who utilized these phones in furtherance of hundreds of contacts with sex workers between 2020 and 2023. For example, an extraction of the 347-885-1697 number, which is an Alcatel flip phone recovered from defendant Heuermann's work desk drawer, revealed the following communication. Are all burner phones flip phones? Does anybody know? I'm thinking, who's got a flip phone in 2023, unless you just want to be totally off the grid. Or you just need it as a burner phone to contact escorts. A, on or about March 1 of 2020, starting at approximately 4:39 p.m., the following text message exchange occurred between Rex's burner phone and a 516 phone number, hereinafter sex worker phone number 1, which is linked to a sex advertisement in the Massapequa area. See image below. Footnote 2 says the district attorney's office is aware of the full 10-digit phone number for sex worker phone number 1. The phone number is redacted to maintain the privacy of the current possessor of said phone. Everyone's chiming in on the flip phone issue. Beautiful, messy. Well, not all burner phones are flip phones, but if you're only using them briefly, they're much cheaper and harder to trace. All right, I guess you know these things. Helen the Scottish Llama, no. You can put a prepaid SIM in any phone. You can put a prepaid SIM in any phone. One of the major legit issues of prepaid phones is for tourists avoiding roaming charges. Now we're going to take a look at the ad that was attached to this phone number. And it was for Mia. All new big booty. You can read this for yourself. Welcome. All some things welcomed in Massapequa. Come experiment the best on Long Island. I'm currently taking appointment in Massapequa. Call for appointment 516 phone number. They're saying that this is the 516 phone number that Rex was texting in 2020. So this was before the task force was formed. But they're just showing additional contacts that he still kept contacting escorts after, obviously, 10 years after the Gilgo 4 bodies were found. At approximately 4:39 p.m., Rex's burner phone sent the following text message to sex worker phone number 1 stating, "Hi, I saw your ad and wanted to see if we could set something up later. Andy." Andy was one of his aliases. C, at approximately 5:09 p.m., sex worker phone number 1 responded to Rex's burner phone text by saying, "I'm don't for the day." I think it meant to say, "I'm done for the day. Does tomorrow work?" At approximately 5:12 p.m., Rex's burner phone responded by stating, "I am working all day. I was free today. My wife is out for the day, working Monday." He doesn't waste any time. He's within 3 minutes, he's right back on it. E, soon thereafter, sex worker phone number 1 responded to Rex's burner phone text by stating, "Okay, love, I'm available Monday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., Tuesday, 10 to 7:30, Thursday, 10 to 7:30, Friday, 11:30 to 7:30. F, at approximately 5:19 p.m., Rex's burner sent the following text message to sex worker phone number 1 stating, "Thanks, I will see which day I can make work." On or about March 4th of 2020 at approximately 7:49 p.m., Rex's burner phone sent the following text message to sex worker phone number 1 stating, "Andy here. Email me at sandbagger303@gmail.com. We can talk bed info." Sandbagger303. I'm wondering, that just makes me wonder if he's got any ties to Colorado. Isn't that the Colorado area code? 303 could be a birthday, March 3rd. People usually pick numbers that mean something to them, right? When they're making an email address, but with this guy, who knows? Google records obtained via subpoena for the sandbagger303@gmail.com here and after the Sandbagger email account revealed that the account was created in 2017 and was subscribed in the fictitious name of Andrew Roberts, a known alias used by defendant Rex A, standing for Andrew Heuermann. A search warrant revealed that the Sandbagger email account was utilized as recently as April 2021 to access and or conduct searches related to P, R, T, and S. You can read those for yourself on the screen. I already said enough things that are going to get me in YouTube jail for the day. Workers, S workers, several thousand times. Thereafter, in April of 2021, defendant Heuermann is believed to have transitioned such activity to the T-Hawk email account, described in further detail as set forth in Exhibit A. For example, these newly discovered searches include but are not limited to. Let's put up a trigger warning, please. Oh, beautiful messy ball coming in with all the info on burner phones. She says you can choose an area code with a burner phone. If you don't want to be easily traced, you might choose an area code that has no connection to you. I had no idea. Douglas says, well, Red is going to sue the Nassau County PD. I would think she's also going to have to sue she'd also sue the Suffolk County PD, right? For bungling the investigation. Going all the way back to 2010 when they had a description of Heuermann and didn't follow up on it and it got buried in the file. It took 13 more years for him to be caught. Who knows? Who knows? But if she is going to sue the county, she's got to file a notice of claim within 90 days. So we'll know very soon. We'll know very soon. Did we get a trigger warning? Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Patronus Glow. All right. You can't unsee these searches. Okay. So I'm going to scroll through them slowly so that you can read them if you want to. I will do my best to try and just the ones that we saw last time. I think I totally redacted them because they were so revolting that I couldn't unsee them, and I did not want to scar you. My demographic skews a little bit older. We're not millennials who can handle this type of stuff. I think maybe a little bit more easily, but here you go. Tied up, fat girl pee, bondage bed, autopsy photos of female. A lot of things about teenagers, a lot of things about crying girls. Very skinny white teen tied up, medieval torture of women, Asian escorts Manhattan, New York City escorts Manhattan. A couple of things about stories of R, which is, forced intercourse. Stories of R audio. A couple of how I was R'd audio. Young twink tied up, P escorts New York City. So there you go. That is his illustrious thousands and thousands of searches. Also on this burner phone, not just the last burner phone that we learned about in the last battle application. So it is gross. This is what this guy is into. This is what this guy is searching up in his history, and it's revolting to me. Let me know if you feel the same. Number 3, this is footnote 3. Unless otherwise notated, these searches are listed as they appeared in the Google records. So I guess this is in the order in which they appeared. In addition, defendant Heuermann used the Sandbagger email account as recently as July 2021 to access and conduct dozens of searches into the Gilgo Beach homicide investigation. These searches or articles accessed included, but are not limited to, how cell phone tracking is increasingly being used to solve crimes, FBI cellular analysis survey team, Gilgo News, how does cell site analysis work, historical cell site analysis, overview of principles and survey, new Discovery series tackles decade-old Long Island serial murders, Melissa Barthelomy's sister, inside the mind of a murderer, new clues in the hunt for the Long Island serial killer. Long Island serial killer victim's sister reveals more about Maureen Brainard-Barnes' mysterious disappearance. Investigators use DNA, genetic genealogy, to ID another victim in Gilgo Beach serial murders. So he was investigating the investigation to see how close they were getting to him. So depending on what he found out, I want to also show you a little clip of Michael Brown is his defense attorney, of what his defense attorney said at the press conference today, because he's going to say that, listen, they had cameras on him 24/7. They were surveilling him for at least a year. He didn't do anything wrong. He was perfectly fine. I submit to you that if he was investigating the investigation, he might have known that. If he had friends inside the department, he might have known that. So he may have been on his best behavior from the time that he was being surveilled, because he either knew that he was being surveilled or he knew that they were getting close. So just keep that in mind. Further digital evidence linked to defendant Heuermann. Recently, during the execution of numerous search warrants following defendant Heuermann's arrest, law enforcement seized hundreds of electronic devices from the defendant's home and place of business. Hundreds of electronic devices. Who has hundreds of electronic devices? Maybe one or two of you might. Does everybody save their old laptops and their old towers and their old phones? And hundreds. Did he like to go back and look at pictures and stuff that he may have had on old hard drives? Yes, Rachel Ann, thank you. I agree with you. During the time that he was being surveilled, doesn't mean he wasn't doing awful stuff, not just just not the obvious stuff. Yeah, and I think that's why they even did say that that's the reason that they arrested him, because they thought he was going to strike again. Yes, Linda Vergata. Wow. Yes, Lamam James, I got your email. I'm going to talk about it a little bit But because I haven't had enough of a deep dive into it, you know me, I like to have all the facts. Thank you for that email. I'm going to lay some knowledge on you that you might not know about. But Lamom James was emailed me some stuff earlier today that was shocking, but not surprising, I think, and about something having to do with a cousin of Heuermann. Gloria Allred mispronounced Melissa's last name many times, made me mad. Not only Melissa's last name, but her sister's last name as well. And you could see the sister behind her correcting her like 3 or 4 times. Yes, Diane, hundreds. Butterfly Dana, that makes sense, Melanie. You probably knew someone and they knew they were watching him. Yep. Oh, that's right. Everyone's saying a hoarder would. That's right. True. True, true. Scott has all his old cell phones. I have them. I use them for props when I'm doing like auditions. I use them for props sometimes if I need to hold the phone. But I mean, what are you going to do? Now they want you to trade them in. So nobody's going to have them anymore if they want that $100 credit. Hundreds of electronic devices. While the review of these records is ongoing, the data indicates that defendant Rex A. Heuermann utilized many of these electronic devices in a similar fashion. For example, Google searches regarding the deceased victims and their family members, Google searches regarding the status of the instant investigation, Google searches for software that would assist in wiping or erasing data from computers and other similar digital devices, purchase or use of Easy Hide IP, Shredder.exe, and other digital masking and forensic wiping tools. Google searches on serial killers and serial killer investigations. Defendants' devices also contained the following. Trigger warning. Yeah, the important part is the names and the searches. Yeah, he does search up a lot of the victims' family members. And through my lens, if you're here, I know that you said something when you came on my show about when you were blackjack dealing, that he may have been, or we surmise that he may have been looking for Maureen's family as well. We do know that he took one of the victim's cell phones and terrorized her sister with her cell phone. A collection of violent bondage and TP preceding, during, and subsequent to the disappearances and murders of the aforementioned victims between 2007 and 2010. And prostitution-related searches preceding, during, and subsequent to the disappearances and murders of the aforementioned victims between 2007 and 2010. For example, Backpage, Craigslist, etc. Notably, an analysis of defendant Heuermann's laptop computer indicates the use of a file shredding software on July 9th, 2009, shortly before defendant Heuermann was to meet Melissa Barthelemy. Investigators believe this was an attempt to shred any digital evidence of the laptop computer being utilized to search for Melissa Barthelemy's prostitution advertisement. Moreover, an analysis of defendant Heuermann's laptop computer reveals that on September 1, 2010, at approximately 9:03 p.m., defendant Rex Heuermann accessed Amber Costello's Backpage ad just hours before the ruse occurred, as described within Exhibit A. All right, I'm going to tell you about the ruse in case you don't know about the ruse. Amber Costello was an escort who advertised in Backpage. And she lived in, I think, Babylon or West Babylon here on Long Island. She would often have the Johns come to her house, and she had a roommate or 2 roommates that were guys that told police that they just wanted money for drugs and they didn't really want her to sell her body. So what they would do is when the John would come, she would get the money, and then one of them would run in and pretend to be a jealous boyfriend and chase the John away. Well, that's what happened here. And Rex ran away, but he was mad. And so he came back the next day, and that's the day that she went missing. So we'll move on from there. When we had Oblivious Benson on recently, she went into the Wayback Machine and found some, it's like a almost like a Yelp, I want to say, or a Reddit kind of, like, for escorts who would rate the Johns and say, don't let this guy hire you. He's crazy. He's violent. And in the reverse, there was also some sort of a community, an online community, or I forget what you call these things, discussion room, where Johns would post about escorts. And Oblivious Benson found some in the Wayback Machine that were specific to this, not this exact date incident, but specific to Amber's ruse, that they were talking about it in these forums. I guess that's what you would call them, like a forum. And we went over that. I can't remember exactly what show that was. Approximately 2 hours later, at approximately 11:33 p.m. and 11:34 p.m., a burner phone linked to defendant Heuermann had communications with Amber Costello's phone. During those communications, the burner cell phone connected to cell site towers in West Amityville and Massapequa Park. Thereafter, the burner cell phone indicates travel to West Babylon in proximity to the residence of Amber Costello, and again had contact with Miss Costello's phone at approximately 12:05 a.m. on September 2nd of 2010, which is when witnesses describe an individual now known to be the defendant Rex Heuermann arriving at the Costello residence. Okay, so he contacts her at 9:03 p.m. on the 1st. He had communications with her at 11:30 and 11:34. And then remember, there were some text messages like, you better give me a credit for next time, or I want my money back, or something to that effect, at 12:05 on September 2nd. The task force discovery of a direct link between Rex Heuermann and Miss Costello's back page ad just hours before defendant Heuermann met with Miss Costello further solidifies that defendant Heuermann was the John who was the subject of the ruse on September 2 of 2010, and therefore was the same John who returned later that day to pick up Miss Costello prior to her disappearance and murder. Despite defendant Heuermann's attempts to wipe or scrub his laptop computer, he was unsuccessful in concealing his access to Ms. Costello's back page ad. I want to go to the chat for a second because I want to remind everybody in the chat that the last person to see Amber Costello alive on that day, September 2nd of 2010, was her roommate, who told police that the man who came to pick up Amber, or who was last seen with Amber, because remember, he told her to leave her phone and she actually left her phone at home and went and met him, I think, down the block or something. He was between 6'4" and 6'6". He looked like an ogre. He had big 70s style glasses and longish hair, and he drove a green first generation Chevy Avalanche. That information was in the police file since September of 2010. What say you, my friends? What say you? That's a problem. And if Gloria Allred is planning on a civil suit, I don't mean to make her case for her, but we've already been through this 100 times. The information was out there. It's a cross check. Green Chevy Avalanches registered to men who are between 6'4" and 6'6", and not a lot of men are that tall on Long Island. I know, they're just not. Could have found him, didn't. Perhaps it was because James Burke was the Suffolk County Chief of Police, and he was smoking crack in the backseat of his patrol car with some other crack dealer women, and that happened in '96, and then eventually he keeps getting promoted until he's eventually the Chief of Police of Suffolk County, and then he goes to jail for beating a suspect in an interrogation room who found a bag of sex toys and ammunition and pornography in the backseat of his patrol car. And so he beat the crap out of that guy, and then he threatened all the other officers who were in the room that if they told, they would, something was going to happen to them. And then he covered that up, and then he wound up going to prison. And then the DA, Tom Spoda, also wound up going to prison because he also tried to cover up what Jimmy Burke did. And Tom Spoda is something like 80 years old and still sitting in federal prison right now, or Club Fed, as we call it. But, you know, police corruption doesn't exist. It's not a thing. Cover-ups don't happen, right? Right, Massachusetts? Right, Canton? Doesn't happen? Come on. Recent DNA analysis of hairs recovered from the examination of the victims' bodies. Okay, I'm not going to get too much in the weeds on this forensics, because what I'm going to do at 8:30 is I'm going to, or after I'm done, I'm going to teleport you over to Duty Ron's show, and he and Ed are going to do, they're doing a show on the forensics tonight, and that's Ed's thing. That's what he does, is forensics. For me to get into the weeds with you on the hair analysis and the DNA analysis, it's not my thing. It makes my eyes glaze over. Like, that's I don't understand it, and it's not my thing. I'm not an expert in DNA, but we'll just sum this up by saying that the Suffolk County Crime Lab and 2 additional outside forensics laboratories, which they are not naming in this document, conducted testing of the hairs that were found on the victims. So there were 3 hairs found, 3 female hairs, you may recall. And then there was a male hair that was found on the belt that bound Maureen Brainard-Barnes. So these 3 labs, the Suffolk County Crime Lab and the 2 forensics labs, compared the DNA profiles generated from the hairs recovered at the crime scene to the DNA profiles developed from defendant Heuermann and members of his immediate family. On or about July 14th, 2023, members of the task force met with defendant Heuermann's wife, Asa Ellerup, as well as his daughter, Victoria Heuermann, and stepson, Christopher Sheridan, and obtained buccal swabs on consent from each of the 3 individuals. So they voluntarily gave cheek swab DNA to law enforcement on July 14th of 2023, all 3 of them. The task force transported these swabs to the Suffolk County Crime Lab and requested that said items be tested against DNA profiles developed from 11 bottles previously collected from garbage cans placed in front of defendant Heuermann's residence on July 21, 2022. As well as a 12th item, a monster Java can, described herein. Footnote 5 says 3 of the 4 victims were restrained by burlap and tape. Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello. While the 4th victim, Maureen Brainard-Barnes, was restrained by 3 belts. The pertinent hairs were recovered from the restraints of 3 of the 4 victims as set forth in Exhibit A. One of the belts that bound Maureen Brainard-Barnes, the one that was the lowest around her ankles and lower legs, had the initials WH on it. It is suspected to be Rex's grandfather, William. Oblivious Benson, you're texting me, but I'm on the air. So, hey, maybe you want to watch my show. Maybe you should have your notifications set, girl. Everybody hit the bell while you're thinking of it, because otherwise you don't be like Oblivious Benson. The Suffolk County Crime Lab swabbed the mouth of bottles. So what they did was they collected 11 bottles from the garbage cans outside Heuermann's house. You have no expectation of privacy, my friends, once you put your trash out to the curb, by the way. Suffolk County Crime Lab swabbed them, and they were able to develop 3 autosomal DNA profiles, ultimately labeled unknown individual A, which was a male, later determined to be the stepson of Rex, Christopher Sheridan. Unknown individual B, which is the female, later determined to be Asa, the wife of Rex. And unknown individual C, a male, later determined to be Rex. Then they surveilled Victoria, the daughter. On May 25th of 2023, undercover agents of the task force conducted physical surveillance of Victoria Heuermann, the then 26-year-old daughter of defendant Heuermann. During said surveillance, said agents observed Victoria Heuermann board a Long Island Railroad train, hereinafter LIRR, at Penn Station, which was headed eastbound toward Massapequa Park. The undercover agents then boarded the train and observed Victoria Heuermann drinking from a gold-colored Monster Java can. Here's a picture of them surveilling her And we're supposed to be able to see that there's a gold can. They blocked out her face. So then they follow her. They get the can out of the garbage at the Massapequa Park train station. They see her throw it in the trash bin, walk away, and then the other undercover agents secure the can. Took it to the crime lab. They did an analysis on it, and they got her DNA. So they were able to obtain 3 DNA profiles, one of Victoria Heuermann, one of Asa Ellerup, and then they compared the buccal swabs with the DNA they got off of those cans, and they're able to decide who is who. And here's the conclusions that they come to. I won't bore you with the details. The female hair on Maureen Brainard-Barnes had been left restrained by 3 leather belts, one of which was utilized to tie Barnes's feet, ankle, legs together. During the examination of the belts, the Suffolk County Crime Lab removed a human hair from the buckle of said belt, hereinafter female hair on Barnes. On or about December 18th of 2010, Suffolk County Crime Lab was able to determine that it corresponded to a Caucasian head hair fragment. Although this hair was found unsuitable for nuclear DNA profiling at that time, it was subsequently sent to Forensics Laboratory 1 for further DNA analysis prior to the identification of Rex Heuermann as a suspect. They did DNA sequencing on that female hair. I was wrong. It was a female hair that was on the belt. And compared it to Asa Ellerup's genotype, SNP genotype file. Again, you can watch Ed and Ron go through all of this with you, but suffice to say that they are saying that that hair that was attached to the belt that restrained Ms. Brainard-Barnes is a 7.9 trillion times more likely to have come from a person genetically identical to Asa Ellerup than from an unrelated individual. Basically, what they're saying is they believe, based on their test results, that hair, that specific hair found on Maureen Brainard-Barnes belongs to Asa Ellerup. The 2 female hairs that were found on Megan Waterman, she had been bound by duct tape. 2 female human hairs were recovered. One was from the outside of the head area, and the other was from the tape of the head area. Both hairs were recovered in the vicinity of Miss Waterman's head. Hereinafter, 2 female hairs on Waterman. Examination by the Suffolk County Crime Lab indicated that the 2 female hairs on Waterman exhibited Caucasian European characteristics, but were unsuitable for further DNA testing at that time. The 2 female hairs on Waterman were subsequently submitted to the lab for further analysis. They did the DNA sequencing data, and then they say that those 2 hairs, the DNA profile generated from that hair is 2.374 times 10 to the 48th power more likely to have come from a person genetically identical to Asa Ellerup than from an unrelated individual. So again, they're saying the 2 hairs on Megan Waterman came from Asa Ellerup. I won't bore you with the math because that makes my head spin too. Second, with regard to the hair recovered from the tape of the head area of Ms. Waterman, again, that hair is 2.778 times 10 to the 480th power more likely to have come from a person genetically identical to Asa Ellerup than from an unrelated individual. The female hair on Amber Costello. Amber Costello was bound by burlap. Maureen Brainard-Barnes, by the way, was the only one of the Gilgo 4 that was not wrapped in burlap. She was only bound by belts, no burlap, as well as numerous pieces of duct tape. During the course of the examination of Miss Costello's body, a female human hair was recovered specifically on a piece of tape from the burlap wrapping in the vicinity of Miss Costello's head. They did the DNA testing on that prior to the identification of Rex Heuermann as a suspect. And recently, after they received all the DNA profiles from the family, they are now saying that this hair may belong to Victoria Heuermann, the daughter, because they compared it to the DNA that was developed from the monster Java can, and that was May 25th of 2023, which was prior to them giving their voluntary samples in July of 2023. The DNA profile generated from the female hair is 4.654 times 10 to the 63rd power, more likely to have come from a person genetically identical to Victoria Heuermann's SNP file than from an unrelated individual. Footnote 8 says, notably, at the time of Miss Amber Costello's disappearance and murder, Victoria Heuermann would have been almost 1 month shy of her 14th birthday. Yeah, they're saying, Mandy, they're saying it's transfer evidence. They're saying it's probably transfer. They're not in any way implicating any of the family members in any of this. They are saying that this is probably transfer evidence, that people shed 100 hairs a day. Yes, Kirsten, that is correct. Thank you, Dennis. Transfer evidence. Maybe the girls were in the house. Maybe the burlap was in the house. It strains credulity. Colleen, my hair is everywhere too, but not on a corpse's. It strains credulity for me to think Asa's hair could travel innocently onto Barnes. Remind me to show you my It Strains Credulity merch that I made. It's got a picture. It's got Alice in Wonderland drinking tea at the top, and it says It Strains Credulity, because I always say, call me Alice, because I've fallen into the rabbit hole. I'll show you that later. Based on the foregoing, it is significant that 2 forensics laboratories, number 1 and 2, have now independently determined that the female hairs recovered on the remains of Ms. Waterman and Ms. Costello are substantially more likely to have derived from a person genetically identical to the genotype files of members of defendant Heuermann's family, specifically his wife and his daughter, than from an unrelated individual. Moreover, as set forth herein, and in Exhibit A, Ms. Ellerup and Victoria Heuermann were out of the state at the time of these murders, which provides further support that Rex Heuermann murdered, restrained, and transported the remains of the victims to Gilgo Beach until they were ultimately discovered in December of 2010. There is also 1 male hair that was recovered from the bottom of the burlap used to wrap Megan Waterman's body. And they are also saying that they were able to link that to Rex based on recent technology advances, I think. Nuclear DNA. That because Michael Brown talks a lot about that at the press conference, the nuclear DNA all of a sudden being available. But I think maybe that's because it has only recently been something that was invented. So after Rex was arrested, remember they got the pizza box, and they say that they used a profile that they got from the napkin within the pizza box. I thought they got it from the crust, but now they're saying from the napkin. Remember we were joking about always eat the crust? And they are linking that hair, male hair on Waterman to Heuermann. No, the I am not a cupcake one. You know what? I'm going to make a different design, Marta, because it didn't show up. I ordered one for myself and I couldn't really read it. So I was like, this isn't good. I have to make it a different graphic, but I will make a different graphic out of it. So yeah, I will make it. So just give me a few days to drum something else up. I just didn't like the way it came out, so I didn't want you guys to buy it. If you couldn't read it, what's the point? Let's go to the chat and just see if we have any questions before we keep going with this. Before we get too deep in the weeds. Let's see. Thank you, Charisma, for your super sticker. I appreciate you. And thank you, Charisma, for becoming a member. Yay. Oh, Miriam, thank you so much for your super sticker. 2 super stickers from Miriam. Thank you so much. Sarah, thank you for your super chat. Thank you for your top quality legal briefings and genuine will to fight for those that can no longer do so for themselves. Thank you. It's what I pretty much based the entirety of my career on. And so when I see these idiots on Twitter saying that I'm doing this for clicks and likes and money, I'm like, how much money do you think people make on YouTube? Like, are you serious? That's what I'm doing. I'm doing this for clicks and likes because, that's how insecure I am. I need that. Do we have questions? How long is ironic? How long will the evidence from the storage unit take and what will it be? Boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff. Who knows what was in there? The only thing that they are really telling us now are things that they need us to know, or they need the judge to know in order to not let him get out on bail, saying that their case is pretty solid. I mean, if he's got his credit card statements going back to 2007, who knows what else they could link him to? I mean, if you watch the press conference today, Tierney kind of said that they're still investigating him. The grand jury is still ongoing and they're still trying to connect him for other, I do use Canva. Who asked me? Oh, thank you, Carol. I love listening to you because you're a great lawyer. Hi, Scott. Dennis, I do use Canva for my logos. I love Canva. The daughter might have been more the cleaning, washing clothes, folding, putting things away. Burlap is used in gardening, and the wife gardened. That's an interesting thought. But there's also evidence that he was a duck hunter, and they also that kind of burlap is used for duck hunting, right? Or duck blinds. Can somebody explain to Marta what Team Maya is? That's a whole other case that we were covering, and there's a lot of documents that dropped yesterday, so I'm going to do those tomorrow. Was it today that they dropped? I don't even know what day it is anymore. I think I've had no sleep, but I will do the Maya documents tomorrow. Yeah, Zimmy from the bus stop. I can't believe this guy was safe for years and could murder all those women. And that's what I was talking about too when we were looking at the cold cases, because some of them were dismembered. And people were saying, well, it can't be the same serial killer because, if he was dismembering then and then he didn't dismember these people. I mean, look, if he was dismembering back in the late 90s or in the mid 90s and nobody was finding out who he was anyway, he might have thought, well, what's the point, man? That's a lot of work. Why am I going to go through all the trouble of having to dismember? It's a lot messier. It's a lot of work. Why not just wrap them up and then put them somewhere where I can go visit them all the time? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a serial killer expert either, but I'm just thinking like with common sense. Yes, Betty, that's what I think. He just got lazy, or he's just like, what's the point? Like nobody's finding me anyway. What's the point? And who knows? I can't believe that either. I wasn't born with her. I can't believe there might be two killers dumping in the same area. I can't believe it either. But again, Oblivious Benson came on the show one night and she showed us evidence that we had a lot of serial killers on this island. Joel Rifkin was from the island. There was a couple. There's a guy named Schulman, Robert Schulman, I think, was a Long Islander. We had a lot around the same time. It's crazy. But again, with the dumping ground, I mean, I just find that to be, Oh, you're welcome, Miss Scarlett. You got your Team Maya apron? Oh, good. I did. Yeah, a lot of the merch, I can put up anything. I find like if you put up too many things, then people are just like get overwhelmed and they just don't want to buy anything. So sometimes the less choices, the better. All right, let's finish this up. The determinations made by the forensics lab number 2 regarding the male hair on Waterman. All right, so then again, connecting the pizza box. They made the order to show cause. We went over that. They wanted to get a buccal swab of Heuermann. The judge ordered it. So on August 9th, Judge Mazie granted the motion. August 16th, they got a buccal swab from Heuermann at the Suffolk County Correctional Facility. They matched everything up. And they're saying that that hair, most likely, to these incredible, incredible numbers, must belong to him. And then they make a nice chart. And they tell us all the reasons why the judge should not give him bail. So the victim is listed here in the left-hand column. The designation in bail letter is in the second column. Approximate location of hair recovery, mitochondrial DNA results, and the nuclear or SNP, they call it SNP or SNAP DNA results, all the way on the right-hand side. I will not read this to you, but I will leave this on the screen in case you want to come back later or screenshot it and you can enjoy it, interpret it, and have the results for yourself. Paul Clank, thank you, Paul, for your super chat. People shed hairs daily. Habits become ingrown. Yes, a lot of hair, a lot of hair. Thank you, Helen, for becoming a member. And thank you, Marta, for your super sticker. I appreciate you. Appreciate you all so very much. Without you, I wouldn't have a channel. Nobody would listen to me. All right, so you can come back later and screenshot that, and you can go through everything and about the forensics. And again, you can go to Duty Ron later and watch that show, and they will explain it far better than I can. I do the legal stuff. They do the law enforcement and forensic stuff. So it works out well. Penalties. If convicted on the current charges, defendant Rex Heuermann faces multiple sentences of life without parole. We do not have the death penalty in New York State. Remand without bail is appropriate. Based on the serious, heinous nature of these serial murders, the strength of the people's case, the life incarceration of the defendant faces upon conviction, the extreme measures this defendant took to attempt to avoid apprehension for over a decade, defendant's use of fictitious names, email, and cell phone burner accounts to avoid detection, online counter surveillance, and defendant's indictment on yet another murder charge as it pertains to a now fourth victim, the people remain steadfast that the only means to ensure the defendant's return to court is to remand the defendant without bail. Dated. That's today, right? January 16th. Yep. Today, January 16th. Love, Ray Tierney. Hi, Scarlett. Hi, Scarlett. Hi, Scarlett. I see you. And then attached as Exhibit A is the bail application, which we went over in July. I have linked that show below if you want to go through that to watch it so that you can go back and review that with me again. What say you, my friends? Thoughts, concerns, questions? Oh, hi, Roger. Roger, were you at court today? I was in Cancun. I was on an airplane. I knew this was happening last week, and I knew I was going to be away, and I was kind of bummed. But we got a lot of snow. So I don't know what happened. I know that Michael Brown was like, everyone should leave. We're getting a foot of snow. Were you there, Roger? Thank you for your super chat. I will see you at court next time. I really wanted to be there today. I'm usually there. As you know, you've seen me. I've streamed live from outside the courthouse. And that is always fun. Thanks for Carol Z for becoming a new member. Patricia Siebold used to follow Stevie Nicks around. They follow me around. Scarlett's loving the support, gang. Loving the support because mommy's not paying attention to her because mommy's in here doing this. No, I did not. Oh, you missed it too, Roger? I knew it was happening last week. It was on the QT, but I knew it was happening. And they did a big press conference, but they did it indoors this time, obviously, because of the weather. But when Roger and I were there for the press conference, it was right outside, and it was a beautiful day. Oh, thanks, Peter. Peter says you should be proud of me, Scarlett. All right. So, my friends. Yes, Roger, we will have plenty more opportunities, plenty more. And the way that Ray Tierney put it today during his press conference, he kind of made it seem like they're looking at him for some of these other bodies. I mean, for those of you who don't know, I'm going to show you a map of the bodies that were found on Gilgo. There were like 11 bodies found around the same time. So we take this case very seriously here, my friends, very seriously. StreamYard, I have a beef with you. You don't make it easy. All right, so here is an overview of the map of all of the bodies that were found on Gilgo Beach, which were all found around the same time. Here's where Amber Lynn Costello was found. I don't know if you can see my cursor. Amber Lynn Costello, Melissa Barthelemy, Maureen Brainard-Barnes, and Megan Waterman were found all in a row. This is Ocean Parkway on the south shore of Long Island. To the bottom of your screen is the ocean. And to the north, that's the Bayside. This is all marsh, swampy. This is where Shannon Gilbert went missing. A little bit further east down here in Oak Beach. And that's where her remains were found. But you can see this is not a long distance. This is maybe a mile. Valerie Mack was also found here. Jessica Taylor was also found here. Parts of Jessica Taylor and Valerie Mack, because their torsos were found in Manorville. So they were also looking for a Manorville butcher. And the skull of Karen Vergata was found here. Remember, I told you about her legs washing up on Fire Island in 1996. And then her skull was not found until 2010. And her remains were not identified until just this year, 2023. Subsequent to Rex Heuermann's arrest. But they have not connected him with any of the dismemberments. There was also a toddler found who was found to be the daughter of Peaches. And I don't know what this says here. The arms of Peaches were found here. There were other parts of Peaches that were found in Hempstead at a park. And they call her Peaches because she's not been identified and because she had a Peaches tattoo. There was also an unidentified Asian male body found. And all of these bodies and parts were found on the north side of Ocean Parkway. And at night, I will tell you from personal experience, this is a very, very dark, desolate road. It's scary if you're by yourself at night and you don't know the area. There are no streetlights. There's nobody out there, and it is desolate. Hi, Helen. Are there still rumors about almost having identified Peaches and Peaches Jr.? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I knew that they were looking somewhere in South Carolina, that they may have found a genetic match, but I do not know. I have not heard anything further on that. I don't know. All right. Do you guys want to see the press conference with Gloria Allred? Because I found that really interesting. I'm like, when did she become involved in this case? And why is she all of a sudden here with the families of the victims? And why does she not know how to pronounce anybody's name? Have you guys seen this? All right. Let us put this up. This is the end. This is the end of tier. This whole thing is 38 minutes. This is already about 15 minutes in. You can go back and search this up if you want. Oops, I'm going to cut out their logo. Otherwise, they may
completed
about me replaying this. So hang on.
Investigations with Maureen Brainard-Barnes being the fourth that we did not complete. One of the main reasons why we didn't.
Also, the volume on this is very low. So I'm going to speak more softly. You may have to turn up your volume so that you can hear it. I'm going to fast forward to Gloria. And it's kind of funny because Ray Tierney turns around. He's like, oh, hi. It was almost like he didn't even know that she was standing there. It's crazy.
Of information that have not been publicly disclosed, but I'm ethically enjoined from speaking about those. So I can't speak about those. So I won't.
Can you hear it?
That's it? Sure.
Okay, cool. I'll try not to blow out your ears. They're not talking yet, Bonnie. Hang on. I don't think he'll ever confess. 11. She's not very prepared.
I'm attorney Gloria Allred, and today I'm here at the Suffolk County, New York courthouse with 5 of my 6 clients who were relatives or a friend of alleged victims of defendant Rex Heuermann. Mr. Heuermann, as you heard, has been indicted on first and second degree murder charges against Melissa Bartholomew, second degree murder charges of Maureen Brainard-Barnes, and first and second degree charges of Megan Waterman.
Can you hear it? You can't hear it? I don't have any fancy sound equipment on my end. I can't really turn it up, so just turn your volume up.
I represent the family members of the alleged victims. Lynn Bartholomew is the mother of victim Melissa Bartholomew.
Okay, her name is Bartholomew, not Bartholomew. We know that.
Amanda Funderburg is the sister of Melissa Bartholomew. Nicolette Brainard-Barnes is the daughter of Maureen Brainard-Barnes. Melissa Kahn is the sister of Maureen Brainard-Barnes. Sarah Carnes was the friend of Maureen Brainard-Barnes. Elizabeth Meserve is the aunt of Megan Waterman and the legal guardian of Megan's daughter. Lynn Bartholomew was not able to be present today, but did try to get here and will be present in.
Again, she's saying Bartholomew. It's Bartholomew. Yeah, Miku, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to get a volume booster.
The future.
Teach me.
They have asked me to represent them as their victims' rights attorney in this case, and I'm honored to support them. 39 years ago, I was contacted by a sex worker named Rhonda DaCosta in California. She performed that kind of work because she needed the money to support herself and her young child. She had met a man named Daniel Zabuski and agreed to provide him with oral sex for $30. But he wanted to rape her and sodomize her, and she alleged that she said no. But he did it anyway. Then he stole money from her. Zabuski was charged with rape, sodomy, and grand theft. Zabuski's criminal trial was...
Notice how she's talking all about herself. This is all about herself. This is all about her accomplishments. She's got a Netflix documentary coming out. No, February 9th. I just Googled her and got her website, and I saw that. So I'm wondering why she's talking all about herself and not really about the victims.
held in Pasadena, California, in front of Judge Gilbert Alston. But before the jury could decide the case, the judge dismissed it. He stated to the Pasadena Star News, quote, "The law was set up to protect good people, you, my wife, my daughters, my granddaughters. It doesn't protect a street-walking prostitute from a contract gone awry. This case shouldn't have been filed. A whore is a whore is a whore," end quote. It was at this point that Rhonda contacted me. I was appalled by the judge's comments. This case wasn't about contract. It was about rape and every woman's right to say no. Judge Alston had in effect declared open season on prostitutes. Rapists and those who beat and murder prostitutes could interpret this to mean that they now had a license to rape, beat, and kill because of the criminal justice system, which would not be there to protect prostitutes or give them access to justice. The judge seemed to be telling rapists that if they committed crimes of sexual violence against sex workers, that the law would protect the abuser by denying the victims access to the courts. Evidently, at that time, sex workers were not entitled to protection of the law from acts of rape and sodomy. I mention this case today because the suggestion from Judge Alston seemed to be that sex workers are not good people, That notion is dangerous to women's lives, whether or not they are sex workers. The courthouse door should never be shut to any woman who is victimized by gender violence. No man has a license to hurt, kill, or do anything else to a woman without her consent. And as I predicted 39 years ago, after the judge made his comments, Zabusky went on to rape, beat, and assault a number of other women.
And this is very horrible what she's telling us about. This is very horrible, but you know, we're all about the victims here. This is kind of about her accomplishments and stuff. And is she trying to explain why she's taking this case? Because it's furthering her agenda of helping escorts, or as she calls them, sex workers? I'm not sure. I think what she does is wonderful. She's done a lot of wonderful things for a lot of wonderful people. I never knew she was involved in this case until today.
Finally, he was sentenced to a term of 80 years in prison in other cases after Rhonda. I was successful in filing a civil case against Zabusky for Rhonda over the objections of Zabusky's attorney, and a different judge allowed me to continue litigating the case for Rhonda. However, sadly, Rhonda passed away, and therefore we never went to a civil trial. The point of what happened to Rhonda is that failing to afford sex workers access to justice sends a message to men who victimize them that the victimizers may never face consequences for their wrongful and criminal acts. This is 2024. Will there be justice for women who just needed some money to help support their children or themselves? It is long overdue to provide justice for vulnerable women who are missing and murdered. It will be for the jury to decide if this defendant will be found guilty of the murder of Maureen, may she rest in peace, and the murder of other women for whom the defendant has been indicted. We look forward to a fair trial for the defendant and justice for Maureen. Next, I would like to introduce Nicolette Brainard-Barnes, who is the daughter of Maureen, and Nikki, as we call her, has never done an interview, and she will make a statement today. And she's very brave because this is heartbreaking for her. Nikki.
First, I'd like to thank law enforcement
She was 7 years old when her mother went missing.
who have been dedicated to working on this case. I very much appreciate your efforts on behalf of these vulnerable victims. I'm here to speak for my mom, Maureen. I was only 7 years old when my mother was murdered. Her loss drastically changed the trajectory of my life. There are countless times I needed her and she was not there. I remember she read to me every night, and now I can no longer remember the sound of her voice. I wish she was here today, but she was taken from us. For years, it looked like there might not be charges filed against any suspect for the murder of my mother. While the loss of my mom has been extremely painful for me, the indictment by the grand jury has brought hope for justice for my mom and my family. I owe so much to my mom, and I know that she would want me to speak out for her in this process and let everyone know who she really was. Even though it was difficult for me, I'm doing this because I want her to be remembered as the loving mother that she was. Thank you.
Oh, so sad. Oop. Okay, watch when she mispronounces Maureen's sister's last name. How the sister, this is her right here, keeps correcting her in the background.
The next speaker will be Melissa Kahn, and she is the sister of Maureen Brainard-Barnes.
It's Can, C-A-N-N. She pronounces it Can, but Gloria keeps calling her Con, and she gets kind of offended by it.
Would you like to identify the person standing next to you?
This is my husband, Christopher Can. Hello, my name is Melissa Can, and I am the proud sister of Maureen Brainard-Barnes. I would first like to thank the collective efforts of the Suffolk County DA's office, New York State Police, Suffolk County Sheriff's Office, the Gilgo Beach Task Force detectives, and the past detectives on this case. 13 years ago, Maureen was found murdered after she went missing for 3.5 years. Throughout these years, I had continued to hold on to hope that one day there would be justice for Maureen, and that whoever took Maureen's life would be held accountable. Today is another important chapter in the long pursuit of justice for Maureen. It has been 16 years since the last time I saw my sister, 16 years since I heard her voice, because 16 years ago, she was silenced. Losing Maureen has become a wound that never truly heals. It remains a part of me. Maureen was a mother of 2 amazing children, and they will forever be without their mother. Sorry. Maureen was my older sister who was always there for me when I needed her. Maureen was inspired to be a writer, and she loved reading books. She was only 25 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. Maureen would never get the chance to show the world how talented she was. My family will never get the chance to know who Maureen would be today because her life was tragically taken. Throughout these 13 years, my family has painstakingly endured Maureen being judged and marginalized. Maureen was more than how she has been portrayed. She was first and foremost a loving mother, a caring sister, and a giving friend. With the loss of Maureen came unimaginable pain and panic. My life shattered with the confirmation of Maureen's death. Due to the experience of my sister going missing and being found murdered, I would suffer from PTSD. I would overthink every situation I deemed a threat because the worst possible thing in my life has happened. I became guarded. I overprotected the ones I loved around me because I knew firsthand that evil exists in this world. I want to ask everyone to please remember the victims: Maureen, Megan, Melissa, and Amber. I hope that everyone will also remember the other victims from whom charges has not been filed against any suspect. These victims had families. They were human beings with aspirations and hope for a better future for themselves. They have families who love and miss them. Maureen, Melissa, Megan, and Amber are no longer here to speak for themselves, and I am glad the family members of other victims are continue to speak out for their loved ones, and I support them because they know their loved ones best, and they miss them more than anyone will ever know. Thank you.
Melissa and Nikki are not going to be taking questions today. However, if you have a few questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them. If you would like a copy of their statements and mine, I have a few copies here, but you can also email me, and most of you have my email. One last thing before I take a few questions. We have a photo. I could email it to you in color, but I do have it here in black and white. It shows Maureen with Nikki when Nikki was a child. Why don't you step forward? Thank you. And you have permission to use the photo. Would you like to come? Okay, this is the photo. Yes. I couldn't hear you. Of the picture?
They're asking for spelling of the
Oh, the
relatives'
sisters,
names.
Okay. Yeah. Sister is Melissa Kahn. MELISSA.
Look at her. She's like, it's Can.
Kahn is CANN. And then
Pronounce it Can, she's saying.
the daughter of Maureen is Nicolette Brainard-Barnes, NICOLETTE, Brainard, BRAINARD hyphen Barnes, B.
That's pretty much it for that. Okay. Time to adjust your volume again. Well, let's see. Did you guys want to watch part of Michael Brown's press conference? Because we can do that too. He seems very annoyed about the new DNA results. So we can play a little piece of that. So you can see what a formidable opponent Michael Brown will be for Ray Tierney. Sarah, thanks for your super chat. Just did a search for sandbags over hearing his sandbagger handle, and they are also made of burlap. Interesting. Dave the Pious, maybe they have the volume down because of mispronunciation. Thank you for that super chat. Rachel Wyatt, I believe she was asked to represent by the victims' families. This is a good thing. I don't understand why people attack Gloria and John Ray. Oh, I'm not attacking Gloria at all. I think John Ray did represent Jessica Taylor's family. I think he does not anymore. In addition to, he has always represented Shannon Gilbert's family. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I'm just saying, if Gloria Allred is in the picture, Suffolk County needs to gear up for some lawsuits because that's going to be coming next. She also represents the victim, Helena Hutchins, who was tragically shot and killed by Alec Baldwin on set of that movie Rust, where he was allegedly mishandling a firearm as an actor. She represents that family and a lot of the other high-profile cases that she gets involved in. But we never see her here on Long Island. I guess that's just, why it was a little bit odd. Amy says, but this case is all about how those cops didn't care one bit. That's what it is about, other than the obvious, but she's not covering the murder case, but for justice, these victims. Yep. I agree. Shari Davis, I think I should keep to myself about Gloria Allred. I've always thought she was a fighter for women. She's been doing this. I think she's 80 years old. I looked it up. She's 80 or 82 years old. She looks amazing, but she's been doing this for 50 years probably. And she has always been a champion of women. Teresa says, how come no hairs from the sun? I don't know. I can't tell you. I know. I thought that was odd too. Thank you, Galen, again for gifting 5 memberships. You are so generous always, always, always. And the more members we have, the better. And yeah, Scott says, sorry, but I don't feel Suffolk taxpayers should have to pay for Burke's corruption. Go after him criminally and civilly. Somebody said Suffolk County has a lot of money. I disagree. Suffolk County does not have a lot of money. It does not. She does not look 80, right? She doesn't. All right, let's take a little peek at some of here comes Michael Brown. Now, keep in mind, Michael Brown is assigned counsel, but he is what we call in New York or Long Island an 18B attorney, because legal aid does not handle murder cases. So if you can prove that you're indigent and you need a public defender, you are assigned a private attorney to defend you. Michael Brown is a private attorney with a very successful practice. So he is not legal aid in the true sense of legal aid. Suffolk County legal aid does not handle murder cases. Thank you, Leah, for your super sticker. I appreciate you so. Okay, got you guys. Okay, and now we are going back.
Now from Fox, as we are awaiting this news conference getting
Is that volume better? Yeah, it wasn't me. It was just whoever recorded that one did not, their sound guy was not on it.
Underway involving the Gilgo Beach serial killings, a 4th murder charge against Rex Heuermann, and it looks like the attorneys have now stepped up to the podium. I believe that is the attorney for Rex Heuermann there. Let's pop up the audio.
I know there's a bail application as well. We also just received that this morning, so I don't have much information on the newest count or counts, but I'm happy to answer questions with you folks if I can.
For clarity, he pleaded not.
We entered a not guilty plea this morning. He has maintained his innocence from day one. He entered a not guilty plea on the original indictment, and he again entered a not guilty plea this morning.
What is the reaction to that?
To the new charges? Well, we had advance notice that it was coming, so I explained that to him. Again, he said, I'm not guilty of these charges. He's looking forward to fight these charges, and we're doing that. We're going to continue to prepare. I expect that additional discovery will be forthcoming on the newest victim, and we're going to examine that and scrutinize it.
Any reaction to the hairs linked to his daughter and his wife?
You know, we saw that.
Any reaction to the hairs linked to his daughter and his wife? I'm going to repeat the question to you. And I like to do that because I know it's really hard to hear the reporter's questions sometimes because I have an earpiece in. I can hear them better than you can, I'm sure.
This morning, and I know you're going to have a subsequent press conference upstairs. You folks have followed this case from the beginning, and all along we have been told that the evidence is unsuitable for nuclear DNA testing. This morning was the first time, and this is 13 plus years, that miraculously nuclear DNA testing and results have come forward. There has been testimony, there has been lab reports that consistently said it was incapable of having nuclear DNA testing. And we had mitochondrial DNA, and those statistics were quite frankly not very convincing. The initial mitochondrial DNA testing for what they claim was his wife was 28 out of 10,000. There was another hair that was 4 out of 10,000. That doesn't put the wife as a suspect in terms of, or the actual donor of that DNA, but what it simply says is that she is not excluded. But if you take 28 people and you'll find out of 10,000 people, 28 will have the same exact type of DNA.
But 8 trillion to the daughter.
This is what we just heard this morning. So we haven't seen anything on the newest indictment, but I am concerned because, again, from day one, and remember, folks, this has been a 13 plus year investigation, and we have been told, and you folks have covered this, that there is no nuclear DNA available. And in fact, it's unsuitable for DNA testing on the nuclear level. We have been told it's mitochondrial testing, and there have been results. Those results are not very convincing. Today, for the first time, is we hear about nuclear DNA. We're going to look into that. We are certainly going to look into the lab reports, the lab testing, and the transfer of evidence, because that's somewhat disturbing to learn for the first time after 13 years that we now have nuclear DNA testing. Anyway, yes.
I don't know when nuclear DNA testing was invented, but I'm going to say probably pretty recently. Yeah, right. Progression in DNA testing is constantly evolving, Clarabella. I agree.
Yes, ma'am.
Grand jury that was investigating the original Gilgo, is that the same grand jury that's investigating that?
She said the grand jury that was investigating the original Gilgo 4, is that the same grand jury that is investigating this indictment from Maureen Brainard-Barnes?
I'm sorry. What I expect is, and you'll have to ask the prosecution about this, I expect it's been the same grand jury all this time. And they may have very well charged out on the 3 victims and then now presented additional evidence and charged out on the 4th victim.
How is the client?
These genetic samples that they obtained, did they obtain them constitutionally? Did they get a warrant for them?
I don't know. I have, again.
Did they obtain the DNA constitutionally? Did they get a warrant from them? Oh, and he's going to say, I don't know, because he does not represent Asa Ellerup. She's represented by Robert Macedonio. And the children, who are adult children, actually have a different attorney, who coincidentally used to be partners with John Ray.
And this is, we just received this evidence for the first time this morning. I don't know.
Mr. Brown, in layman's terms, can you assess the evidence you've seen from the DA?
Yeah.
In layman's terms, can you assess the evidence you've seen from the DA?
The evidence is there's a couple of components to what they have, and it's been consistent up until this point. You have mitochondrial DNA, which in regards to my client, let's assume for a moment that number one, the DNA on the victim is in fact the perpetrator. That's a big leap, but let's just take that because we have transfer DNA. But make that assumption. Make a second assumption that the collection of the evidence was entirely proper. Big assumption, you have people walking around without gloves at the crime scene. There's photographs. I think some of you folks have published that. But let's just make that assumption. Now you have 2 out of 10,000 could be the donor. Suffolk County, Nassau County, total, we have 3 million people. That's about 600 people that potentially could be donors for that DNA. That's one.
I mean, he's doing the best with what he has, but I mean, what say you, my friends? Okay, there's 600 people that could be, except for your guy drives a green Chevy Avalanche, so there's that. Your guy's 6'4" to 6'6", so there's that. Your guy's got his cell phone pinging all over with the burner phones and the phones of the victims, so there's that. I mean, if not DNA, it's going to be one of those other 10 things, but hey, I mean, you got to work with what you got, right? It's called zealous representation of your client.
One piece of evidence. Another piece of evidence they have is the burner phones. So what they have is they have pinging of cell phones. There is nobody, not one person on the face of this earth that is going to say that back then my client possessed a cell phone that was a burner phone and was communicating with any of these girls. What you have is pinging. Massapequa Park, New York City. Massapequa Park, the population, if you just limit it to his neighbors, there's 17,000 people in Massapequa Park. In New York City, in Midtown New York City, where he's an architect, where his business was located.
How many of them were members of La Trapeze and were swingers? How many of them, I mean, we could go on and on with the evidence, but let's just see what he has to say.
There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people at any given time that would be using any of those cell sites and pinging. That's the second piece. The third piece is they have an individual who claims that he sees this ogre, and I think you folks heard that at the arraignment, an ogre, and claims he may have seen a vehicle.
Okay, wait.
That individual is some.
Wait for it. Now he's going to shame the witness. He's shaming the witness who gave the description of Heuermann back in 2010.
Somebody who, just to put things in perspective, what he would do is he would use this young lady for her to have the interaction with the John, steal the money, and then go out and get high on crack, heroin. He's the one who purportedly makes this identification. We have not seen, and I don't think they have, made an identification by that individual to my client. This is 13 years later. There has never been an identification procedure, a lineup, a photo array. All you see is this individual claiming it was an ogre, and they now translate that to saying my client. So that's in essence what the evidence is. Keep in mind, folks, what they haven't proposed to the court in the bail application is that they have had my client under surveillance for a year and a half. 24/7, they had poll cameras in front of his house.
Poll cameras in front of his house 24/7 for a year and a half. So here's this argument.
If there was any suspicious activity, if there was anything nefarious by my client, we would have heard about that. For a year and a half, now he doesn't know he's being surveilled. For a year and a half, he is going to work, taking the train, going into the city, working as an architect. He employs 5 people, and coming home, spending time with his family. That's what you see for a year and a half. In addition, when he was arrested, what's also important to note, if there was any type of admission, you would have heard about that. There is none. So when he's arrested, there's an SUV, and there's numerous videos in that SUV that are capturing the conversation with the detective and my client. And I can tell you that my client in that conversation en route to Yaphank was bewildered, was stunned, had no idea why he was being arrested. So those are the things from a layman point of view, what I believe they have.
But
sources close to the investigation have publicly said that they believe he was going to strike again, and that's why they.
Sources close to the investigation have said that police believed that he was going to strike again, and that's why they arrested him. What do you have to say to that?
So do you know the sources that are close to the investigation that say that? Because I'm just asking.
It was publicly said.
Yeah, I think the ex-police commissioner had made some innuendos about we needed to move in.
Okay, the ex-police commissioner is Rodney Harrison, and he is the ex-police commissioner because Suffolk County recently elected a new county exec, and the county exec gets to pick his police commissioner. So it's not like he's the ex-police commissioner because he did something wrong or because he got fired. It's because the new administration comes in, they get to pick their own. Right now they have an interim guy because they haven't picked a permanent one yet. And Rodney Harrison, in my opinion, was the best thing to happen to this investigation. And I'm sad that he's gone.
There is, and again, I have the videos. We've reviewed the videos. We've seen the poll cameras. There is nothing Rex Heuermann was doing in the year and a half that was suspicious. Rex Heuermann in that year and a half was leaving his house, commuting into New York City like a lot of folks out here in Suffolk and Nassau do, work in the city, comes back home, sits on his porch, plays with his dog, is with his wife and kids. That's what you see in the videos. Those types of things, and I know they say this, those types of things poison our jury pool because there's nothing about what he was doing that was negative in any fashion. It's the same as putting out that he had a room full of weapons, of guns. The vast majority of these guns are legal. He's a collector of guns. There may be a small percentage, a handful of guns that are antique or collectible items that were not registered. Let me just finish one thing. There's nothing in this case that suggests that those guns were utilized in the commission of any crime. So again, what's the point of putting it out there other than to poison the jury pool? There is none. I'm sorry.
His search history, his efforts to scrub files on his computer.
I don't.
How is your client doing?
I haven't. Is that a two-part question?
It is.
Okay.
Look forward.
All right. So in regards to the first question, in terms of scrubbing, or I haven't seen any of that. Searches, so that's another interesting point. Searching the internet. Ask yourselves what you search on your computers and your phones.
Yeah, I ask myself that a lot, and that's why I don't search a lot of things like La Trapeze. I don't want that in my search history.
So one thing leads to another. You see a show about something, you start searching. And they talk about how somebody's killed, you start searching. And then they talk about another way, and you start searching. Think about if they looked at your own personal search history, how all of a sudden you're guilty because of your search history. Think about what you search, what your friends search, what your kids search, what your neighbors search. That in and of itself makes you guilty. Now, the second part of what you're asking me is about how he's doing. You're talking about a gentleman who has never been arrested before. He's a productive member of society. He's going to work every day. He's supporting his family, and he's incarcerated. And he's claiming he didn't do this. So obviously it's troubling, and he's dealing with it on a day-by-day basis, one day at a time. But he is looking forward to having his day in a courtroom. Yes, sir.
The information that we were all given from the district attorney says that every single one of these 4 victims' death coincides with your client's wife and kids going away. Was there anything you wanted to say on that?
I don't have any.
He said that all the dates that the victims went missing or may have been killed coincide with dates that the wife and children were out of town. Do you have anything to say about that?
Let me say this. You know, the guy on the street said to me, Mike, I don't understand, because what about the Shannon Gilbert case, right? And I say common sense. Shannon Gilbert, let's talk about that for a moment. The Suffolk County Police Department has eliminated that as a homicide. So look.
And we disagree. Does anybody else disagree that Shannon Gilbert was an accident? I mean, does anybody, disagree that Shannon Gilbert's death was an accident? I disagree.
Because you're talking about consistency, and I agree with that. So Shannon Gilbert is a prostitute. Shannon Gilbert was a young lady who went to the same location, and it's obvious that she was in danger, that she was going to face death. And she luckily was able to make a phone call, and that's recorded, and you folks have listened to that. Is there any doubt in your mind that Shannon Gilbert was the victim of a homicide? So because it didn't fit into the narrative, Shannon Gilbert was now labeled an accident. She fell, she drowned into a puddle of water. Does that make any sense? So
he doesn't believe that Shannon Gilbert was an accident either. He believes that Shannon Gilbert was murdered too. Okay, that's interesting.
So because my client's not involved in Shannon Gilbert, therefore that's an accident.
That's who?
But everything else is a murder. So these are things that are troubling to us. And again, we're going to explore this at trial. What you folks need to know also, there are over 1,000 leads and suspects in this case. Okay? And I would suggest the typical way
There are over 1,000 leads and suspects in this case. Is that what they've learned through discovery? That there were 1,000 other suspects? Or is that hyperbole?
go forward is to gather evidence, see where it takes you, and then you can arrest somebody. In this particular case, they had little bits of evidence, and they focused on Rex Heuermann. And then they accumulated more evidence, and they tried to fit that additional evidence to complete their narrative. That's what we have here, and that's what we're looking forward to trying in a court of law. It's going to snow a foot. You guys better hurry up.
We can tack on to what she
Yes.
said. I believe it was District Attorney Tierney who said in a press conference in July that your client continued to patronize sex workers up until the point they arrested him. If they were watching him from a year, were they watching him do that? What were they doing that whole time?
You'd have to speak to them about it. So I'm not going to comment on whether he did or did not patronize prostitutes, right? That's
The question was, well, you say they were surveilling him for a year. So are you saying that he wasn't hiring any prostitutes during that year? Is that what you're saying? Now it's like walking it back, walking it back, walking it back. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he didn't kill any of them because he knew he was being surveilled. So he still wanted to get some. He just didn't want to kill anybody. I shouldn't laugh because it's not funny.
sex workers, prostitutes. We don't want to cleanse anything. So the issue.
Sex workers, prostitutes, we don't want to cleanse anything. What does that mean? Did you hear that? I want to walk that back a second. Sex workers, prostitutes, we don't want to cleanse anything. We don't want to call them anything but prostitutes because sex workers is cleansing it? Wait, what? Yeah, what is it, Miku? Explain that to me. I have questions. He's not winning any points in the public saying prostitutes instead of sex workers. He's dehumanizing them more. All right, hang on. I got to hear this again.
So I'm not going to comment on whether he did or did not patronize prostitutes, right? That's sex workers, prostitutes. We don't want to cleanse anything. So the issue is many people patronize prostitutes. That doesn't mean they're killers. I don't know what they have, and I don't know what the commissioner was the former commissioner was referring to, but hopefully he'll be here at trial and we can ask him.
So what about the hairs that were found on the belt for Ms. Barnes?
Those are the most recent.
Right, yeah. Can you speak about that?
I can't, only because it's new evidence and I haven't seen anything, so I can't. I can comment on what I've reviewed. I haven't seen that yet. That's I believe that's the DNA that we just learned for the first time this morning. That's in the bail package,
yeah.
And that's what I had indicated earlier is somewhat troubling because all along we've been told there's no nuclear DNA, and now for the first time, 13 years later, what was once unsuitable and we couldn't get a DNA profile from a nuclear basis is now nuclear capable. We're going to have to look into that. It's problematic.
I don't know. Isn't that technology constantly changing? Isn't that a science that is really constantly changing every single day? Yeah, Oblivious Benson, please be careful driving. Do not drive recklessly. In Texas, they might lock you up. And I cannot arraign you there because I'm in New York.
I'm sorry?
Can he even get a fair trial on that?
Can he even get a fair trial?
You know,
in Long Island. Clearly, that's not a Long Island reporter, because those of us who live on Long Island is on Long Island. You don't live in an island, you live on an island. Can you get a fair trial on Long Island?
Let's say we can't get a fair trial on Long Island. Where are we going to go? Right? We may very well make that motion to the court. I have great faith in the people of this county to listen to the evidence and decide if there's enough evidence. I've tried enough cases to know that. This case is obviously unusual, and it's exceptional in the sense that there's so much media coverage. I will say that there's a good likelihood, once the team reviews everything, that we'll make that motion for a different venue. But then the concern is, where are we going to go? Unless you're living in a closet for the last 13 years, who doesn't know about this case? And with the internet, the advent of the internet, everybody reads everything. But we're going to look into that. You guys good? Grant, I'm sorry.
Did he indicate to you at all what is included in that additional discovery?
I don't.
Did he indicate to you at all what's included in that additional discovery that he turned over?
Additional grand jury minutes, and some maybe search warrant returns.
So there's additional. Ms. Koish has it. We're going to start looking at it. There is additional, and the DA is very forthcoming. They've been providing us with evidence as we go along. It's, as most of you know, it's a tremendous amount of evidence. We've been looking at it as we get it, but unfortunately, we're not even close to the end. So it's going to be ongoing.
Mr. Brown, could you
Yes.
tell us how his children are doing? Has he seen them?
I don't believe that either of the two children have visited him at the jail. I know the wife has, but I don't believe the children have yet. But I think that may be forthcoming. So clearly they want to see their dad.
And has the wife visited him more than that one time that we had spoke about, or just the one?
I don't know. You'd have to ask. I think the sheriff had made some comments about how many times. And I think it was more. My understanding is it was more than one.
He was mad. He was mad about Eric Toulon's interview with Newsday. He was mad about all the things that the sheriff said publicly, and he has a right to be. I mean, the sheriff said a lot of, in my opinion, inappropriate things about Rex Heuermann and what he was doing and who was visiting him in jail. And I don't know that he had, that it was a smart thing for him to talk about, but nobody asked me. So I'm just here reporting to you, my friends. And let's go to the chat. Caitlin, we got you already. Ed, thank you for gifting 5 memberships to those lucky individuals who receive them. It is totally random, and I have no control over who gets them. As long as you're participating in the chat, you're eligible to receive gifts, or something else you need to do to opt in, like hit the 3 dots and opt into membership gifting. Thank you, Ed, again, for always doing that. I love that. Clarabella, they said his wife and daughter was also in court. What about the film crew? His wife and daughter were in court. I don't know. Nobody has mentioned if the film crew was there. I'm sure they were. They paid her $1 million, paid her lawyers something like 400 or 600 grand each. And I think they paid her another $1 million, Peacock, to make this documentary. Part of the deal was probably that she had to, they got to follow her around. But I have not seen it reported. Granted, I was on a plane this morning, so I haven't had a chance to catch up on all of the news clips from today. But if anybody knows, let me know. Christo Cedar, Mama Mitochondrial. I'm busy. I don't know why I highlighted that one. I guess I thought it was funny. Hi, Marta. Thanks for your super chat. Does he have any chance short of a miracle? Mel, well, they're talking about a change of venue. I don't see that happening. I mean, anywhere in the tri-state area. Well, it would have to be in New York. Anywhere in New York, he wouldn't. Everyone's heard about this case. But we here on Long Island do take it a lot more seriously, personally, than maybe if they were to go to Onondaga County, which I don't even know where that is, quite honestly. But since somebody brought this to my attention, I'm going to bring this to your attention. Pictures of Asa, please. I don't have any. I understand her hair was getting noticed today. I mean, I guess there's a simple Google search for that. Somebody told me to Google Kim Commando. Thanks. Yeah, she's pretty. I don't know why you wanted me to Google her. But I did do that for you, so thank you. Asa Ellerup. Asa Ellerup today. Let's see if we have anything from today. I'm not seeing anything specifically from today. But since one of my viewers sent this to me, Clarabelle, you have a lot of catching up to do. Oh, I'll tell you, Tumbleweed, what the second-degree murder charge is. First-degree murder in New York is only a specific categories, and there are a bunch of them, but one of them is killing 2 or more people with intent within the same 24-month period. We went over that before, and because Maureen was the first one that Rex Heuermann is alleged to have killed in this grouping of 4, not ever, he can only be charged with second degree. So New York is different in that first degree murder does not apply to every single murder of a person. Second degree is murder with intent. But in New York, first degree has to be either a serial type killing or killing of a law enforcement or a peace officer. There are certain categories of things that fit in first degree. And for Maureen, it would not. There is a lawsuit pending. Actually, I think it just settled, but it is pending, was pending in Onondaga County. I'm going to get into this more at length another day. But one of the defendants in the case is Kenneth Heuermann. Kenneth Heuermann is allegedly the cousin of Rex. And this is a lawsuit for a woman who was allegedly abused by Kenneth Heuermann, who was a pastor at a Lutheran church for many, 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 many years. Horrifying. The details of this are horrifying. I'm not going to get into this with you right now, but this is the lawsuit that was brought to my attention. And I have not been able to, Oblivious, maybe you can work on this for me, see if we can find, if we can verify that Kenneth Heuermann is indeed the cousin of Rex. Onondaga County, this was filed in 2019, which was right around the time that the Child Victims Act window was closing, which is a law that I fought for 15 or 16 years on behalf of my clients who were all victims of clergy essay against the Rockville Center Diocese, and the law would not permit them to have any justice because child essay is one of those things that by the time a child discloses what happened to them, the statute of limitations is already over. And this is a horrifying, horrifying lawsuit against this Kenneth Heuermann. So to me, that could mean that he may have been, Rex maybe as a child was a victim of this pastor who also was a cousin. I think they're Rex's grandfather and this guy's, Kenneth's father, were brothers, which would make him a lot older than Rex. But the allegations in this complaint are chilling. Other people have speculated that he may have known Alan Plaka, Monsignor Alan Plaka, who was one of the architects of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Rockville Center essay policy against children. Alan Plaka was a lawyer / priest who was involved in the cover-up and all of the fraud that went on Long Island during those cases. So this is all just some very weird stuff that's kind of coming up now. And who knows what this guy's childhood looked like. Epstein didn't own an island. You know, they put a resort on Pedo Island. Epstein's Island is now a luxury resort. Who wants to go there? Anybody? Anybody want to go on there for vacation? Heidi Cakes, he had all those guns, but didn't use them for a crime. Wonder what the illegal guns were for and if he would have used them later. There were some witnesses that came forward that said that I think there was a taxi driver who said that he had a gun and he told her he had a gun and he wanted her to drive into the woods or something. And somehow the dispatcher came on the speaker in the taxi and said, started yelling at him that I see what you're doing, get out of the car. And I think there was more than one witness that came forward and said he may have had a gun. So we will see. Who's paying for the attorneys? Gloria Allred is an attorney that works on contingency, which means she doesn't get paid unless the lawsuit that she files is successful. And Michael Brown is paid for by the taxpayers of the county of Suffolk because he is an 18B attorney. He's an assigned counsel, but legal aid in Suffolk County doesn't handle murder cases. So those cases get assigned to private attorneys. He seems like a great attorney. People were saying they didn't like him. Oh, here, Miku said, is his lawyer a private lawyer? I get that everyone deserves representation, but defending this client is a nightmare. Look, guys who are defense attorneys really believe in the process. They really believe that everyone deserves a defense, and you have to give them credit for zealously representing their client, right? And if you want to flip this over, you look at the Karen Reed case and you see how her attorneys are also zealously representing her. And you'll see how my opinions will change from case to case. Sometimes I'm for the defense, sometimes I'm for the prosecution, but I'm always for the evidence, and I'm always for the rule of law, and I'm always for procedure. So I'm not a cupcake. That's what it says right there. Because this sign over here says, you can't make everyone happy. You're not a cupcake. I can't make everyone happy, but I'm also not going to be a neutral channel because that's boring. Yep. Didn't know that. Yep. All right. So with that, my friends, I'm going to teleport you over to Duty Ron and Ed so that you can learn more about the forensics if you so desire. And if you go into his chat, tell him I sent you. Okay. Tell Duty Ron and Ed that I sent you. In the meantime, I will come back tomorrow and do Maya. Hit the bell so you get all notifications. I just don't know what time that is going to be yet. Let me know if you want me to go over Maya with you or if you've had enough of the Maya coverage today. I'm happy to do so if you would like me to. I did read them on the plane, and that is some crazy stuff. I can't believe Judge Carroll's decision on the Maya case. It's good. It's good for Maya. It's good for everyone. I think he's gotten to be an appellate judge, and I think he should be. I think he's a very fair judge, Judge Carroll. All right, my friends. So remember, thank you to my moderators. You guys are amazing for keeping the chat classy. All of you in the chat were very classy tonight, and thank you so much for doing that. To all of my replay viewers, all of my members, all of my, just hit the bell and do all the YouTube type things that people do to help the algorithm so the stream can get out there. I see that we were already demonetized like halfway into the stream for, I don't know, saying something that YouTube doesn't like. I have no idea. All I'm doing is reporting on the news, you guys. I'm reporting on a crime. I'm not allowed to read the documents because it may have the M word in them. I mean, come on, YouTube. I guess I don't have enough subscribers for them to care. Okay. Remember, my guys, my friends, my people, my cupcakes, be cool, be kind, be classy. It's really not hard. Peace out. And I'll see you again tomorrow. And then I'll be back Thursday night to cover Karen Reed's hearing. And then I will be on Brian's stream on Friday night with him. He's already promoting it. So I will see you pretty much every day this week. Peace out. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for watching.